screen now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So for example,
Okay, sir. Okay.
Automatic supplier selection in our ERP system, or automated design of industrial toolings, motion control of redundant robot manipulators. Then this type of examples, if I consider, then multi-criteria decision-making methods have potential to solve this type of problem. Multi-criteria decision-making basically refers to making decision in presence of multiple and usually conflicting criteria. Before classifying MCDM methods, let us consider a few examples, which we have grouped it into 3 different categories. The examples in category 1 are robot selection problem or supplier selection problem. In robot selection problem, we have to select a robot having best possible configuration with respect to various attributes such as payload capacity, repeatability error, programming flexibility, or cost, etc. Similarly, in supplier selection problem, the task is to select supplier best performing with respect to various criteria like price offered by the supplier, quality of the product, technical capabilities, financial stability, etc. The examples in category 2 are manufacturing, for example, manufacturing of carbon reinforced composites. Now here, the alternatives could be generated by changing various process conditions. For example, we can change amount of reinforcement or sintering time or sintering temperature, etc. And we have to select the alternative which we could guess, for which we could get best material properties. For example, we could get density, hardness, bending strength, cost, etc. Another example in this category is robust design process for cake making, in which we have to design the process in such a manner that quality of this cake in this particular, in terms of taste, color, order, etc. We can see the attributes as taste, color, order. These are the attributes of that quality, and the quality should not be affected by noise factors such as moisture level. The examples in category 3 are like design of automated fixtures or blank nesting in press tool operation, etc. In fixture design problem, our goal is to determine the optimum positions of the locator points. You can see whatever shown in this particular green color. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are basically the locator points, and these are clamping points. So our job is to determine the optimum positions of locating and clamping element so as to maximize, or sorry, minimize the clamping force, or to ensure the full restraining of the workpiece, or we have to ensure easy loading and unloading. Another example is a intelligent blank nesting in press tool operation, in which basically we have to obtain the best possible orientation of the blank on the metal sheet in such a manner so as to achieve the maximum material utilization or minimum tool wear and also proper grain orientation. So thus we have discussed the examples in these 3 different categories. What is difference in these examples? If we look at the examples in category 1, here we have to choose the compromise best alternative. Hello? Hello? Okay. So if you look at the examples in category 1, we have to choose the compromise based alternatives from among given finite number of alternatives. The number of alternatives could be 10, 50 or even 1000. And the attribute data here most of the time is secondary. It means it is gathered through the catalogs or manuals or brochures, etc. For example, in robot selection problem, the information about repeatability error or load carrying capacity can be obtained from the robot manufacturer's catalog. Also, the attribute data could be quantitative, that is numeric, or qualitative, that is categorical. Now, for the examples which we consider in category 2, we have to select optimum factor level combination so as to make the process robust. It means we have to design the process in such a manner that controllable factors, also called as noise factors, would hardly affect the process response. For example, if you consider the process of cake making, then here the controllable factors might be your oven temperature or quantity of sugar, quantity of flour, etc. These factors which we can control. Where uncontrollable factors may be a moisture level. Here our task is to select level combination of controllable factors or the attributes for which even a large variation in the moisture level would hardly affect the quality of cake. The quality may be expressed again in terms of taste, color or order. In this case also, the alternatives are finite. Just like in category 1, we have to select the best solution from the finite number of solutions. In second category also, we have to select a best solution from finite number of solutions. And usually the solutions are L raised to K, where L represent number of levels and K represent the number of factors. Suppose in our cake making problem, we consider 3 levels of each factor. For example, say sugar quantity could be 500 gram at level 1, 700 gram at level 2 and 1000 gram at level 3. And we consider number of factors are say 4. Then total number of experiments required are 3 raised to 4. That means 81. However, here we need to perform actual experiment. If you observe in category 1 problem, the attribute data was collected, which was basically secondary data and was collected through the information available in the catalog, brochure and so on. But in second category problem, we have to collect the data from experiments. It means that basically it is a primary data. Therefore, if we have to conduct 81 experiments, it is really a costly and time consuming affair. Hence, here we use Taguchi methods in which number of experiments required to be performed are greatly reduced. For example, in our case, if you go with Taguchi method, then we need only 9 experiments instead of 81. But the beauty is, these 9 experiments will produce the same results which otherwise we could obtain by conducting those 81 experiments. Now consider the examples in third category. The basic difference between examples in previous 2 category and this category is that here we need a mathematical model, either explicit or implicit. And the alternatives are infinite. In first 2 cases, the alternatives were finite. In the third case, the alternatives are infinite. For example, if I consider this fixture design problem, we need a mathematical model where objective is to minimize the clamping force as well as ensure total restraining of workpiece and also to ensure that this particular loading and unloading should be easy. Now here, what are the variables? The variables here are basically the 3-dimensional position of all locating points and clamping points. So here, as our objective is to obtain optimum configuration of locating and clamping points. So here we have 6 locator points and 2 clamping points. So total 8 elements, and every element is to be placed in 3-dimensional space. So therefore 8 into 3, hence total 24 combinations, total 24 variables are there. Now basically in this case, these variables are free to take any value in a continuous manner within their bounds. And these bounds are obviously specified by the workpiece dimension in this particular case along X, Y and Z direction. Now, the examples quoted in first category are referred as multi-attribute decision-making problem, where the best alternative is to be chosen based on certain criteria, and each criterion is expressed in terms of certain attributes. For example, in cake making problem, quality is a criterion and taste, order, color of a cake are the attributes of quality. The examples mentioned in second category are design of experiments based multi-attribute decision-making problems. And the examples which we consider in category 3 are referred as multi-objective decision-making problem. Thus, if you observe, we can now classify this MCDM method in these 3 categories, that is multi-attribute decision-making problems, DOE-based multi-attribute decision-making, and multi-objective decision-making. The examples of multi-attribute decision-making techniques are say simple additive weights, then weighted product method, Topsis method, DA method, Vickers method, and many more. Similarly, several methods are available for DOE-based multi-attribute decision-making. For example, principal component analysis, multi-objective Taguchi, response surface modeling, full factorial DOE, and many more. In case of multi-objective decision-making method, also we have many advanced techniques available like genetic algorithm, simulated annealing, particle swarm optimization, or artificial bee colony algorithm, harmony search algorithm, and many more such algorithms, they are available. Now, as can be seen from this particular figure, that several algorithms are actually available to solve a particular class of problem. However, the common problem associated with every type of MCDM method is how to assign appropriate weight to each criteria. Because here we are considering various criteria and what should be the weight to be assigned to each criteria. And basically this is a very crucial issue, as you will get different choices with a different set of attribute weights in all three type of problems, in all three category type of examples. So thus, to demonstrate this fact now, let us consider first a robot selection problem. The participants are requested to put their questions in chat box, and we will try to give the answers to those particular questions after the session. So I will first demonstrate this example to show you what is the effect of assigning weights to the different attributes. So again, let us consider our problem of robot selection. So let us consider there are 6 robots. Every robot has a different configuration with respect to these particular attributes. So let us consider 4 attributes. LC is a load carrying capacity. Then here R is a repeatability error. MI is the man-machine interface, and PF is the programming flexibility. So if we consider here these 4 attributes, we can see here that out of these 4 attributes, the 2 attributes, that is load carrying capacity and repeatability error, this can be expressed in a numeric form. Therefore, basically these particular 2 attributes, they can be expressed in a quantitative form. Whereas we cannot express man-machine interface or programming flexibility, these attributes like this, in the quantitative form. Therefore, they need to convert it into a qualitative form. So we can they need to first represent in a qualitative form. So we collect the data for every attribute in a quantitative form for first 2 attributes and in a qualitative form for the last 2 attributes. Now let us assume that initially I don't have knowledge about this process. So let me consider equal weights for all attributes. Now, this is basically this can be considered as a decision-making problem, because if you observe here that no alternative is best with respect to all attributes. For example, from load carrying capacity point of view, robot 5 is the best option because load carrying capacity is to be maximized. So the maximum load carrying capacity is offered by robot 5. So therefore, robot 5 is a best option with respect to load carrying capacity. But from repeatability error point of view, robot 6 is the best option because repeatability error is to be minimized. So minimum value is available for robot 6, and therefore repeatability error is, we can say robot 6 is the best option from this attribute point of view. If you see the man-machine interface, then it is expressed in qualitative form, but A represent here average, AA is above average, BA is below average. So again, if you see this particular column of the attribute for a man-machine interface, then robot 2 is performing best with respect to this criteria. Whereas for programming flexibility, if you see, the robot 3 is performing best. So it means that every alternative is performing best separately for the different type of attributes. And hence it is a decision-making problem. Because here now, my issue is here, how to determine the best alternative, which will be a compromise best with respect to all attributes. Now, my first task, now of course, since here I want to proceed further with some numerical processes. So therefore, I need to convert this qualitative data into a quantitative form. For this one, I can use a Likert scale, say 5-point scale. So here for this man-machine interface, let us consider a Likert scale as very poor. Let us consider very poor as 1. Then this below average as 2. Then average as 3. Above average as 4. And excellent is say 5. So thus here, if it is below average, we will assign 2. If it is average, we will assign 3. If it is above average, we will assign 4, and excellent, we will assign 5. So this is average, so we put it here 3. For above average, we put it here 4, and so on. Similarly, for programming flexibility, we consider a Likert scale, 5-point Likert scale again. With here we consider the Likert scale with very low, then low, then medium, then high and very high. So here very low will be considered as a 1, low will be considered as a 2, medium will be considered as a 3, high will be 4 and very high will be 5. So accordingly we have converted this qualitative data into its quantitative form. So medium will be considered as 3, high as 4, very high as 5 and so on. So thus my first task is to convert this attribute data, especially that data which is expressed in the qualitative form, into its corresponding quantitative form. Now the next task is we have to now, because since every different criteria are expressed in different units, for example load carrying capacity is in kg whereas repeatability error in mm. So I cannot perform any algebraic operations directly on this particular attribute data. So what we can do for that we normalize it. So next task is that we have to now normalize this data. We have to normalize the attribute data. Now for normalization, what we do, that we consider the best solution in that particular. We first classify these attributes as the beneficial attributes and non-beneficial attributes. What are the beneficial attributes? Beneficial attributes are those attributes for which higher values are desired, whereas non-beneficial attributes are those attributes for which lower values are desired. For example, here load carrying capacity, higher values are desired of load carrying capacity. Therefore, load carrying capacity is a beneficial attribute. Whereas repeatability error, we have to minimize it. So lower values of repeatability error are desired. Therefore, we consider it as a non-beneficial attribute. Similarly, man-machine interface and programming flexibility are beneficial attributes. So thus here, load carrying capacity, man-machine interface and programming flexibility are the beneficial attributes, whereas repeatability error is a non-beneficial attribute. Now, for beneficial attributes, we consider the best solution, that is the maximum value in this particular column. So the maximum value in this particular column is 56. So what we can do now, we will make 56, we convert 56 into 1 and all other values less than 1. So for that one, we can see here, we can divide here, this we can divide 42 by 56 to get 0.75, 46 by 56, 0.821 and so on. So like this now we can first normalize the data. So we have normalized this particular attribute load carrying capacity. For normalization of repeatability error, here we consider a minimum value here, for example 0.30, that value will be converted to 1 and all other values will be made less than 1. So here what we can do, that we multiply this smaller value by the reciprocal of other values. So thus here 0.13 into 1 by 0.16, so that will give this value. Similarly 0.13 into 0.18 and so on. So this way now I can now normalize the repeatability error also. And similarly for man-machine interface, we can divide every particular number with its maximum value, say 4 in this case. And for programming flexibility, we will be dividing every number with maximum number in that particular column, that is 5. So thus we have performed this normalization operation. But now here we have to, of course, every time we have to assign different weights depending upon my perception about that process, my understanding about that particular process and the purpose for which actually we are going to select that particular robot. We have to assign weights to those attributes. But initially, let us assume that since we don't have much knowledge about the process, we have assigned equal weights to all attributes. So since the sum of all the weights must be equal to 1, we assign 0.25 value to each attribute. So weight of each attribute, let us consider as the 0.25. So the next task is to now, we have to find out weighted normalized values. So weighted normalized, already we obtained normalized value. But if I multiply the normalized values by its corresponding weight of that attribute, we will get a weighted normalized value. So thus we can obtain this value as 0.75 multiplied by 0.25, we will get this value. Then 0.813 multiplied by 0.25, we will get this value and so on. So this way now we can find out weighted normalized values. Now what we have to do here, since we are going with a simple additive weight method, so here simply we will be taking the sum of all these weighted normalized values for every alternative. So thus here if I take the sum of these values, it is 0.728. So this 0.728 is a score for alternative 1, that is robot 1. Similarly, I can find out the score for all other robots. So thus here we can find out the score for all other alternatives. And since here we consider a maximum best value always as 1, either whether it is basically a beneficial attribute or non-beneficial attribute, but we consider the best alternative always as 1. So here this maximum score here represent the best compromise solution. So thus we can observe here the maximum value in this particular column is 8.845, and therefore this is ranked as 1. So thus robot 4 is this particular solution. That solution offers you the best compromise values of all these particular attributes. So this is how we can rank those particular solutions by a simple SAW method. But now our issue is that what will happen if I change the weights? For example, now suppose if I, instead of using 0.25 weights, suppose if I change the weights, instead of we consider the weight for load carrying capacity as the 0.2, then repeatability error is suppose more important to me, therefore I will assign the weight as 0.35. Here also assign the weight 35, and programming flexibility is not more important to me, so I will assign the weight 0.10. Now you can see, now if you see this particular, so this particular process will be applied, and we can observe here now our choice has been changed. So now robot 2 is now the winner. So thus we can observe here that when once I change the weights, then you will get the new solution selected, or new solution becomes the best, another solution becomes the best solution. So now that is the reason why basically choosing the weight is very important, because by choosing this different weights, now you will get different solutions of that particular same problem. So that's, as can be say, thus we can observe here, our main concern here is to now how to assign the weights to the attributes when the decision maker do not have comprehensive knowledge about the system. For example, not necessarily that the decision maker always have a knowledge about all the type of processes. So for example, the purchase people may not have the knowledge about, much knowledge about robots. Suppose if that means that he may not be sure about its application, where the robot is going to be used, or he may be unknown about few technical terms such as repeatability error and so on. Then how to assign the weights to different criteria when we know that the selection is highly sensitive to these weights, and the wrong weight, selection of wrong weights would definitely lead to the wrong choice and will spoil the entire game. And henceforth we will be discussing about those methods which offer the automatic selection of weights. So the first method which we are going to discuss is analytic hierarchy process. Of course, introduction about this process has already been given by Dr. Nandurkar in his first session. So this method is developed by SETI, and although this method will not provide you the weights automatically, but will certainly help you to check whether the weights assigned by you are correct or not. And as already discussed in the first session, this method works on the concept of pairwise comparison of attributes. So we can observe here that here every attribute is compared with every other attribute. This is known as pairwise comparison. For example, here we have 4 attributes: load carrying capacity, repeatability error, man-machine interface, and programming flexibility. So every attribute will be compared with every other attribute, and that's why basically here this is known as pairwise comparison. Now, and this pairwise comparison provides great comfort to the decision maker, because suppose, for example, if a student is offered 10 electives, right, and he is asked to choose one, he will be certainly confused to make proper choice. But instead of that, if we ask him to compare subjects in a pairwise manner, that means I've asked you to, okay, now what do you think about these 2 subjects? Which you feel more important, or which subject you would more like? Then naturally, probably it is very easy for him to judge. And therefore, this is the first step in this particular AHP process, that is pairwise comparison of this particular attributes. And this is also known as relative importance matrix. Now, what we do here, that if you observe here that this pairwise comparison matrix or relative importance matrix, whatever you may name it as, this particular matrix is always a square matrix of size m, where m is number of attributes. And while how to assign this relative importance, we use again the SATI scale. So it is basically SATI scale is 1 to 9 scale. So basically number 1 is a degree of importance 1 is to basically when these 2 attributes are equally important. 3 is used when that one at first attributes is moderately more important than other. 5 is used when strongly more important, and so on. And whereas 2, 4, 6, 8, these even values, they represent the intermediate importance. Now then let us assume that, okay, here also now suppose I am a layman and I don't know much about the robots, and then arbitrarily suppose I have assigned the relative importances to this particular attributes. So but one thing is very clear, that every attribute with respect to itself is equally important. So we can see that the diagonal values are all 1. Now, if I consider this repeatability error and load carrying capacity, then I feel, this is my understanding, this is my judgment, that I feel that load carrying capacity is supposed moderately more important than repeatability error. So from this particular static scale, moderately more important, so I will assign 3. Similarly, programming flexibility, I feel that it is load carrying capacity is strongly more important than programming flexibility, so I assign 5. Now, if you observe here that if the repeatability, if a load carrying capacity is basically moderately more important, so we assign this importance or degree of importance 3 over here, then automatically it means that repeatability error is 1/3 times the important than this particular load carrying capacity. So when I compare repeatability error with this particular load carrying capacity, then it automatically becomes the reciprocal of 3. It also means that here we need to only basically find out the values of upper triangular matrix. The values of lower triangular matrix can be automatically obtained as they are reciprocals of the corresponding elements of the upper triangular matrix. So thus now here we can see that now let us say this is my judgment that I particularly assign this particular degree of importance of every attribute with respect to every other attribute. Now first task is now based on this particular pairwise comparison matrix. I have to now find out what are the weights. So to find out weights we can use, there are many methods, but suppose here I prefer to go with geometric mean method. So here what we do now, that to find out geometric mean, I will take the product of all these particular values for every attribute and then raise to this power of 1/n. So it means that you can see here, this is product of all, you can see here the formula bar, this is the product of all these values raised to 1/4, where 4 is the size of matrix. So it means that suppose if you have 10 attributes, then it will be 1/10 and so on. So thus we can find out the geometric mean for every attribute. And then we have to normalize these values to find out the weights. So here the sum is 5.968. So if I divide every value with this particular sum 5.968, then we get the corresponding weights for that particular attribute. So the first task is to find out the weight of the attribute. So first we prepare the pairwise comparison matrix based on the what is the understanding of that particular decision maker. Then we find out geometric mean, and then we find out the weights. So okay, the weights are obtained. This is fine. But the beauty of this particular algorithm is that it tells you whether whatever is your judgment, whether that judgment is really consistent or not. So this is how we have to now test it in this with this particular algorithm. What we do for that, so we have obtained the weights. Now we have to check the consistency of this particular weights. So the procedure is like this, that we first find out this matrix A3. The matrix A3 is the product of A1 into A2, or A1 and A2. So A1 matrix is the matrix of relative importance. A2 matrix is the matrix of weight. So this is a 4/4 matrix. This is a 4/1 matrix. So ultimately resultant is also the 4/1 matrix. So we have this matrix A3. Then we divide every value of matrix A3 with the corresponding value of matrix A2. So that is A4 matrix is obtained as A3 upon A2. So this value divided by the weight value, we get this particular value 4.172. So similarly, we can find out the values of this matrix. This. Now we can see next we have to find out the average of this particular. Now average value of this matrix A4 represent the maximum eigenvalue. So here we find out lambda max. The lambda max represent basically the maximum eigenvalue. Now once you obtain the eigenvalue, next task is to find out the consistency index. The consistency index is calculated as lambda max minus m, where lambda max is the maximum eigenvalue, and this maximum eigenvalue is nothing but the average of this particular matrix A4. So lambda max minus m, here m is the size of matrix, upon m minus 1. It means that to how I calculate this value 0.082, it is 4.247 minus 4, because size of matrix in our case is 4, upon 4 minus 1. So we get this particular value. This is consistency index. Now then we have to find out consistency ratio. Consistency ratio is basically the ratio of consistency index and the random index. Now random index values are again given by setting. For example, if it is a matrix size 1, then Ri is 0. Then for matrix size 2, it is also 0. If it is 3, then 0.58. If it is 4, then 0.90, and so on. So that you can observe here that if the matrix is, in our case, the matrix size is 4, so random index we choose is 0.90. So we can obtain the consistency ratio as consistency index, which is 0.082 upon the random index. Random index here is 0.90, and thus we get 0.091. Now here let us consider that the 10% error in the judgment is allowed. Let us assume that 10%, and this is usually the case, that the 10% error in this particular judgment is allowed. It means that this consistency ratio should be less than or equal to 0.1. And then in this particular case, you can see now this particular consistency ratio is less than 0.1, that is 0.091. And therefore, we can see the result is consistent. It means that whatever the assignment or whatever the judgment I made while assigning this particular relative importances of the different attributes is correct, or we can say it is consistent, as it offers the error less than 10%. But now consider that suppose if I don't have the knowledge about process, and instead of here writing 0.167 as the we can say the relative importance of the repeatability error with respect to the man-machine interface, if I put value 6 over here, then we can see what is the result. Now we can see if I put this value 6 over here, then you can see now the consistency ratio becomes 0.707. So it means that about 70% inaccuracy is there in my judgments. So therefore we can see finally the result is inconsistent. So in this, thus it means that in this particular case, what is the beauty of this algorithm? That okay, you are free to make your judgments, but there will be a check on this particular judgments. It means that should I go with these weights or not, those that can be decided. So it means that if you observe here, so if I go with this previous judgment, then the weights were 0.23, 0.11, 0.16, 0.49. So okay, I can safely use the weights. But if I put the value 6 over here, then I got new values of weights we can observe, and these weights are not acceptable because basically your judgments are inconsistent. So this is the first method, that is analytical hierarchy process, which we have discussed. Here also, if you have any doubt about this particular process, you can ask the questions in this particular chat box. Yes. Now we will learn another important method of this MADM category, that is multi-attribute decision making category, which is known as data envelopment analysis, and which has a capability to generate weights automatically. So if you see in AHP methods, the weights where we have to decide the weights, or we have to make a judgment, and your judgment was checked. But in case of this data envelopment analysis, even you did not require to make a judgment also. Rather, you can just offer the range of weights which you feel suitable, and then automatically the weights will be assigned within that given range of the decision maker. Now here we will be discussing this application of data envelopment analysis method for selection of material for cryogenic storage tanks to transport the liquid nitrogen. So here we have to now basically design a storage tank to transport liquid nitrogen, and we have to select the material for that. The data envelopment analysis model that was developed by Chance et al. In 1978, and this model evaluates the relative efficiency based on linear programming of alternatives of multiple attribute decision making problems. And the alternatives are to be evaluated, they are termed as here in this particular algorithm as decision making units. Now here again, just like we classified the particular attributes, here also we classify the attributes as non-beneficial attributes and beneficial attributes, and there must be clear-cut distinction between these two particular type of attributes. Now let us consider this particular problem. So here the problem is, as we have discussed, basically here we are going to decide the material for the storage tank, and the properties required are, suppose here the toughness index, then the yield strength of that material, Young's modulus, density, then thermal expansion, then the thermal conductivity, and say specificity. And suppose we have 7 choices, so 7 materials are there. So the list of materials also I think given over here. So okay, there are 7 materials, and we have to choose the best material for that particular application. Now again here the data, attribute data can be collected. Now here all data is available in a quantitative form. Now my first task here is now to clearly separate the non-beneficial attributes and beneficial attributes. So this is very essential in case of this data envelopment analysis. So here I will first identify which are the beneficial attributes and which are the non-beneficial attributes. So here if you observe here the toughness index, the yield strength and Young's modulus, these three attributes or these properties, they must be high. So therefore these are beneficial attributes. Whereas density, then the thermal expansion or this thermal conductivity and specific heat, these are the properties for which these lower values are desired. Therefore these properties, these particular properties are the non-beneficial attributes. So thus here we'll write first the non-beneficial attributes and then the beneficial attributes. So this order is very important over here as we are going to assign the coefficients to all these particular attributes. Now, my then next task is to again go for normalization. The process of normalization is exactly same as what we discussed in case of that particular SAW method. So here, for example, suppose if I want to, if we consider this attribute as the density. Now density is to be minimized. We want minimum density. Then we consider the lowest value. So lowest value here is 2.8. So 2.8 is made 1. I'm sorry. Okay, yes. In this particular case, here now of course so here a normalization process of this particular method. Here we do normalization irrespective of whether it is beneficial or not. We categorize it as a beneficial, non-beneficial. But here what we do now, we are irrespective of that, even it is non-beneficial attributes or beneficial attributes, we assign 1 to the maximum value only. So thus here, for example, if it is density, then the maximum value here is 8.53. So we assign 1 to this particular density over here, to the 7th material. Then then we can say all other values are made less than 1. So thus we can see here the other values are made less than 1 depending upon their attribute data. Then similarly, then for other even if you consider these beneficial attributes, if I go with toughness index, then in toughness index also we can see here that the maximum value of toughness index is 770. So this will be considered as a 1 and all other values will be made less than 1. So that's basically in this particular technique, irrespective of whether it is beneficial or non-beneficial, the maximum value will be considered as a 1 and other will be less than 1. Rest of the things will be automatically taken care in the model. I will be explaining you in that model itself that even if I consider the value 1 to this, we can say this worst solution, but still that will be taken care into that model. Now, so once we normalize this particular data, then next task is to formulate a linear programming model for this data envelopment analysis. So this understanding this model is very important. For example, here what we do, so what is our objective? Here we have to find out the efficiency of all decision making units, that is DMU. So here there are 7 DMUs, that is decision making units, and we have to find out the efficiency of each DMU. So the efficiency is obtained like this, that is it is maximization of N1, where N1 is the efficiency of the first alternative, that is the first material, is given as 0.0981 U1 plus 0.3077 U2 plus 0.3419 U3 and so on. So here you can see what are these values. Basically, if you see here 0.0981, 0.3077, 0.341, so on. So basically these values are the attribute data. We can say this is the attribute data for material 1. And U1, U2, U3, if you observe here U1, U2 and U3, these are basically the coefficients. In fact, these are the variables. Those are associated with this attribute data. So what we do here we consider 7 variables, V1, V2, V3, V4 and U1, U2 and U3. Now V1 here, so okay. So we can see here for this one, the basically this variable or the coefficient is V1. For this one it is V2. This is coefficient here is V3. Coefficient for the SH is V4. Then this is U1. This is U2 and this is U3. So thus basically here I will be considering there are 7 attributes. So I will be considering 7 variables. And V1 to V4 are these four attributes, these variables are assigned to the non-beneficial attributes, and u1 to u3, these coefficients or variables are assigned to the beneficial attributes. So that you can observe what is our objective function. Objective function is to maximize the efficiency of say material 1. Then the objective function is formulated as 0.0981 into u1 plus 0.3077 into u2 plus 0.3419 into u3. In fact, the same thing is written over here. So thus, in fact, this can be expressed. Yes. So this is my first I have to formulate objective function. Of course, this is only for first material. The problem is to be solved for every material. The next is we have to formulate a constraint now. So what is that constraint? That constraint here will be taken to take care of these non-beneficial attributes now. So you can see the objective function will be considering only beneficial attributes. Now here the first constraint is that this value of the attribute value of that non-beneficial attribute multiplied by its coefficient and the sum must be equal to 1. It means that what is the first constraint? First constraint is for material 1 is 0.3283 multiplied by V1 plus 0.9683 multiplied by V2, 1 into V3, 1 into V4 and so on. So that's basically here, and this particular sum must be equal to 1. So this is my second constraint. So we understand basically this is the objective function and this is the first constraint. The next constraint is that the value for next constraint. Now here you can see there are 7 constraints here. What are these 7 constraints? The 7 constraints are for 7 materials, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So these are 7 materials. And then what we do now, that these are the attribute values, and V1 to V4, these are associated coefficients. Here also these are the attribute values of this particular beneficial attributes, and U1 to U3, these are associated coefficients. So it means that we for every particular row we find out this particular equation, and that must be less than or equal to 0. So thus for the first, basically for the first alternative, this value it is this multiplied by this plus, but here we see that is why we see here for non-beneficial attributes we assign minus signs, whereas for beneficial beneficial attributes here we assign plus sign. This is how basically we take care of that normalization, because in normalization, even it is a non-beneficial attribute, we assign 1 for the maximum value, but it is taken care here in this particular equation. So if you see in these equations now, we assign minus sign to these non-beneficial attributes and plus sign to the beneficial attributes. So then this is how now I think we can understand very clearly from this that this is done for all these particular 7 materials. So this multiplied by this multiplied like this for the first material. Similarly, second constraint is this multiplied by this plus this minus this multiplied by this minus this multiplied by this, like that. So this is for the second row. So in this particular manner now I can formulate the next 7 constraints. So thus so far we have formulated one objective function and the basically here the 8 constraints. The next constraints, now here as already I mentioned here that data envelopment analysis, here we need not require to specify the weights, exact weights. Rather we may specify the weights in any given range. For example, suppose density is the attribute, I may specify, I may not be sure about what should be the exact weight for this density, but we can say that I am confident that this weight must lie between 0.20 to 0.32. So therefore for density I can assign lower bound value as 0.20 and upper bound value as 0.32. Then we can see here, if you see this particular equation, then this equation, what is this equation? This is Vi that should be greater than or equal to LDI upon UBJ into Vj. Now here we understand V are the basically the coefficient
Hello. Hello, Power sir. Hello. Hello, Power.
Hello, Power sir.
You are not audible, sir. Hello.
Hello. Power sir, you are not audible. Kindly. Hello. Hello.
Okay, sorry, I think the connection was lost. So let us resume again. Am I audible now? Okay. So, so if I consider, so thus we were discussing about okay. So we consider the lower bound values for this density as value as 0.20 and upper bound value is 0.32. So here, what we can do now, the first constraint, how we formulate the first constraint. So we set here the V1 as V1 as so I is equal to 1 and J is equal to 2. And the lower bound LBI is the lower bound value of the first attribute. So thus we can see here the lower bound value of the first attribute is 0.20 and the upper bound value of second attribute is also 0.20, right? So thus I could write the expression as, so here I is equal to 1 and J is equal to 2. So I can write the expression as V1 is greater than or equal to 0.2 upon 0.2 into V2, right? And therefore we can rewrite the expression as minus 0.2 V1 plus 0.2 V2 should be less than or equal to 0. So this is my next constraint. Similarly, then I can apply this constraint, that is Vi should also be equal to or less than VUBI upon LBJ into Vj. Now here I is equal to 1 and J is equal to 2. So thus V1 should be less than or equal to UBI. UBI is the upper bound for the first attribute, so it is 0.32. And LBJ is the lower bound for the second attribute, that is 0.10. And Vj is V2. So thus I can write this particular constraint as V1 that should be equal to or less than 0.32 upon 0.10 into V2. That is the constraint can be written as 0.1 V1 minus 0.32 V2 and that should be less than or equal to 0. Now then this is for the first attribute. Now this is we compare now first attribute because it is very clear we are evaluating the first alternative. So here now we will be comparing the first attribute with the third attribute now. So the first two equations to compare the first attribute with the second attribute, whereas the next two equations will be to compare the first attribute with the third attribute. So again it means that I will set I is equal to 1 and J is equal to 3. So thus here we see for the third attribute lower bound value is 0.02 and upper bound value is 0.10. Again, I can use the first equation. So this first equation now can be written as V1 that should be greater than or equal to lower bound of 1, that is 0.2, divided by upper bound of 2. So the upper bound of 3 here, because j is equal to 3. So that is 0.1. So the third equation is V1 should be greater than or equal to 0.2 upon 0.1 into V3. And this can be written as minus 0.1 V1 plus 0.2 V2 should be less than or equal to 0. Similarly, the next equation will be to satisfy this condition, that is Vi should be less than or equal to UBI upon LBJ into Vj. So accordingly, again we consider first attribute and third attribute, and then I can write the expression like this. Next two equation to compare first attribute with the fourth attribute. So thus we can form actually here 8 equations. Those 8 equations to satisfy these particular two conditions. And here we consider base as the first attribute and is compared with the remaining 3 attributes, and that is given by this particular 8 constraint. Now in similar way, we have to compare the first attribute for the beneficial attributes also. So that is first the first one, first material with respect to all other with respect to all other attributes. So thus here we consider, suppose here also, but here we consider now u, because u1, u2 and u3, these are the variables assigned to this particular beneficial attribute. So here the equations are same, only thing v is replaced by u. So thus we can write this as ui should be greater than or equal to lbi upon ubj uj, like that. So thus here we consider this first beneficial attribute as ti. So here the equation is u1 should be greater than or equal to, now here LBI means lower bound of the first attribute, that is 0.50 upon UBJ, that is lower bound of upper bound of second attribute, that is 0.20. So 0.15 upon 0.2 U2, and this way we can now again write the expression. In similar way, now I will satisfy the second equation. So while comparing the first attribute with the second attribute, and the next remaining 2 equations are to compare the first attribute with the third attribute. So in this particular manner, we can see now total 6 plus 4, the 10 constraints are basically formed in order to satisfy these 2 conditions. So this is how we can see here the total number of constraints here formed, and of course last constraint is that value of uv and vu must be greater than or equal to 0. So they must be positive. So that you can observe here, हॅलो, नाही तिकडे येतोय का स्क्रीन? मला मला तसं सांगा नसेल येत तर. Okay, so thus basically we are formulating this total 20 constraints.
So you are not audible. Hello.
1 minute.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. You are not audible.
हॅलो, आवाज येत नाही ना वाटतं? हा, ठीक.
येतोय ना, आवाज येतोय तुमचा? तुम्ही बोलत ना, आवाज येतोय का तुमचा? आवाज कमी येतोय.
स्क्रीन दिसतंय आता?
हो, हो, हो.
Okay, so so thus here we are formulating one objective function. Sanjay sir, can you hear me now? Hello, hello. Hello. हा, आवाज येतोय का? सांगा ना मला, ते फीडबॅक द्या ना तसा. हॅलो, हॅलो. म्हटलं आवाज येतो का नाही, मला फीडबॅक द्या ना तसा. येतच मग तसं मला सांगा ना, मी हॅलो करतोय, तुम्ही रिप्लाय करा ना त्याला. हॅलो. Okay, so thus here for formulation of this DEA model, we formulate objective function, that is maximization of this efficiency, and as we have discussed here, that we will be assigning these coefficients to these non-beneficial attributes and for beneficial attributes. The coefficients for non-beneficial attributes are V1, V2, V3 and V4 as mentioned earlier. So thus here the coefficients for the non-beneficial attributes are V1, V2, V3 and V4. Whereas for beneficial attributes, the coefficients are U1, U2 and U3. Now, the efficiency of that particular alternative is obtained by considering this attribute data multiplied by the coefficient. So it means that the efficiency for the material 1 is 0.0981 multiplied by UN plus 0.3077 multiplied by U2 and 0.3419 multiplied by U3. So thus we can see here, this is what is written over here. So this is the efficiency of that particular alternative 1. Now we have to formulate the constraints. So to formulate the constraints, what we do here, we are, since in basically to formulate the objective function, we consider only beneficial attributes. So while formulating the first constraint, we consider only non-beneficial attributes. So that we consider here 0.3283 multiplied by V1 plus 0.9683 into V2 plus 1 into V3 plus 1 into V4. So this is what this particular, and this is equal to 1. So this is our first constraint. So we can observe here the first objective function will take care of this particular beneficial attributes, and this first constraint will take care of the non-beneficial attributes. Now the next 7 equations, as we have discussed, basically these equations are to represent all conditions for all 7 materials, right? So thus here we will be multiplying the corresponding attribute data with the coefficients for all materials. So this is what the next 7 equations are formed. So thus we can form the objective function, then we form the first constraint, and then remaining 7 constraints for those 7 materials. Now the next constraints are to be formulated in order to satisfy these 2 conditions. Now here what we do now, let us consider here I is equal to 1. Since here we are evaluating the first alternative, we set here I is equal to 1 and say j is equal to first 2, right? So let us first choose I is equal to 1 and j is equal to 2. So what is this condition? This is V1 should be greater than equal to lower bound of 1. So lower bound of 1 here is 0.20 upon upper bound of 2. The upper bound of 2 here is also 0.20. So thus it is V1 should be greater than or equal to 0.20 upon 0.20 into V2 because j is equal to 2 here. So this is our first, this is our next constraint. So the next constraint is to satisfy now this condition. That is V1 should be less than or equal to UV1. That is the upper bound of the first attribute, that is 0.20 upon lower bound of second attribute, that is 0.1. Sorry, the upper bound of first attribute is 0.32 and lower bound of second attribute is 0.1. So thus here we write V1 should be less than or equal to 0.32 upon 0.10 into V2, and thus we formulate the second equation. In similar manner now we compare the first particular material alternative with the third one. So thus first attribute with third one. So thus here we consider V1 I is equal to 1 and let us set j is equal to 3. So thus here what we do that it is V1 is equal to, then here LBI I is equal to 1, so lower bound of 1, so that is 0.20 upon upper bound of 2, upper bound of 2, sorry, upper bound of 3. Since here we are considering now j is equal to 3, so upper bound of 3 is 0.10. And in this way now we can formulate the third equation. So likewise now here basically we take V1 as a base and then we compare it with all remaining 3 attributes. So here we get to satisfy these 2 conditions, and thus we get total 8 constraints for this non-beneficial attributes. Similar exercise we do for the beneficial attributes also. Only thing here instead of V we will be using U. So thus U1 will be compared with this U2 as well as U3. So for U1 to compare with U2 we get these 2 equations, and for U1 to compare with U3 we get these 2 equations. So these 4 equations will be obtained. So likewise as you observe that to satisfy these 2 conditions there are total actually 10 equations, constraints. So thus here already we have these 8 constraints plus this total here we can observe 10 constraints, so 18 constraints, and we can see here this is the last constraint is to satisfy that this last constraint is that value of V and U must be greater than or equal to 0. So thus there are total 20 constraints over here and one objective function. Thus this is how basically a linear programming model is to be formed for this data envelopment analysis, and this step is very important step. Now here this we have one objective and 20 constraints. Now how to solve this model? So for solution of this particular model we can then use the fminconf function in MATLAB. Now I will just, in order to save the time, I will just run the pre-recorded video to show you how basically this MATLAB can be used to solve this particular model. Once the DA programming model is prepared, it can be solved using fminconf function in MATLAB. Now we will see this application. fminconf function is used to solve constraint nonlinear minimization problems. Here we prepare two M files, one for evaluating objective function and other for evaluating constraint function. So this is M file for objective function. Here the row 2 to 8 basically represent the attribute data for the 7 materials. The objective function here is n, and we have 7 variables in our case: v1, v2, v3, v4, and u1, u2, and u3. While preparing M file, these variables are represented as x1 to x7 respectively. We can see here that minus sign is assigned to the objective function, since we are using minimization algorithm for solving a maximization problem. After assigning this minus sign, let the algorithm minimize objective function. Then, in the final solution, if I remove this minus sign, will give you the maximum value of objective function. Another M file is prepared for evaluating the constraint values. Here also, the row 2 to row 8 represent the attribute data. In our model, we have 20 constraints, and all these constraints are represented here by this value C. Now let us run the program. So input M file for objective function. The bounds for all variables are 0 to 1. Of course, we can use any value between 0 to 1 as a starting point, but here we'll be using 0.5 for all variables. Now we can input the M file for constraint function. And lower and upper bounds. So let us start the program. We can see here the objective function value, which represent the efficiency of the material 1, is 0.33. The set of variables is shown over here. Now, basically these are the values of variables, but we have to find out the values of weights. Therefore, we will normalize these values. So we will import this particular data in Excel. Now we can find out the sum, which is 3.12, and to get weights, we will normalize these values. The particular value divided by the sum. And we can see for the weights, the sum is equal to 1. Now, the weight for the weight for this first attribute is 0.32. For second attribute is 0.18. For third attribute is 0.02, and so on. Now we can see here the bounds for these 7 attributes. For density, the lower bound is 0.20 and upper bound is 0.32. And we can see the weight selected here by the method is 0.32. Similarly, for the second attribute, it is within the range 0.10 or 0.20, and the weight selected here is 0.80, which is within this particular bounds. Similarly, for the third attribute, it is 0.02. For the fourth attribute, also 0.02, which is at lower bound. For the fifth attribute, the range is between 0.15 to 0.30, and the value is 0.80. Yes, so in this way, we can find out this weights using that particular DI method. We can prepare a programming model, and then we can solve it using fminconf function in MATLAB, and we can find out the weights of the different attributes. So thus here, we need not require to specify exact weight of that particular attribute, but rather we can specify the bounds within which the weight should lie. So this is the beauty of this particular algorithm. Now here, for example, for density, I have considered the weight between 0.20 to 0.32. But if you are not sure about that also, then you can simply consider the weight between 0 to 1. That will also work, and then DA method will find out the specific value of that particular weight of each weight for all attributes in such a manner that the efficiency of that particular solution will be maximum. So this is how we can do it for the first material. The same exercise we have to repeat it for other material also. So thus we can see we have solved it for the first material and the efficiency is 0.33. In similar way, we can do it for the remaining materials for 7 materials, and we can see that for material 3, the efficiency is maximum 1.39, and therefore the rank of this particular material 3 is 1, and therefore we select this particular material 1 as a base, material 3 as a base choice. So in this way now the data envelopment analysis method can be used. The advantage of using this particular method here is that there is no burden on the user to decide exact weights of that particular attribute, but rather those weights should be automatically decided by the process. So this is what about these two methods, that is analytical process and the data envelopment analysis. So thank you very much. Hello, Sangre sir. You can end the session.
Hello.
Hello. You can close the session.